I'm Mark Freidenberg from Bentley University in Waltham, Massachusetts, and I'm a member of the Campus Tech Board. I teach at Bentley in the IT department, and they asked me to give the talk on the hot topic, Rethinking Learning Spaces, and I leaped at the chance to do it because it's something that I've been working on a lot at Bentley over the past couple of years. Bentley is just west of Boston, and it's a business school. It's a four-year undergraduate school. There's a graduate program there and a PhD program, and it's mostly a business school. And so we try to, and there are a number of campus learning spaces for special purpose technology labs there. And my story begins here. If you're tweeting, you can follow me on Twitter at checkmark, and you know the Campus Tech hashtag by now. My story begins here. My department chair, I teach in the Computer Information Systems department, and my department chair came into my office a couple years ago, and he said to me, "Mark, I want you to take over the CIS lab." I said, "Why?" And then I said, "No," and then he came back to my office the next day, and he said, "Mark, I want you to run our computer lab next year." And I said, "Do I have to?" This was the place, and so finally, by the third time he came back into my office and told me that I was doing it, I said, "Now we can talk and tell me what it is that you don't like about the way it's currently being run or something, so that I can have a sense of what you're really asking me to do, because I don't want that job." And he said, "Well, it wasn't, the place basically wasn't being used as much as they wanted it to be used, and if you look at this, it was sort of clear why. This was in a room, a basement room, no windows. The lab had 40 computers going around the edges, and a big long table in the middle. The floor was gray, the carpet was gray, the walls were gray, the furniture was gray, the lighting was fluorescent. And it wasn't necessarily the place that most students wanted to hang out. Its primary purpose was a tutoring lab, and that meant that the only people who went there were people who needed help. So let's just say it's not where your best students went. So it wasn't a good hangout place to be. And the thing that irked me the most about it was, at Bentley, our lab is in one corner. We have a really nice trading room next door, and there's a usability lab next door to us. And when the campus tour people came by, they would go to the trading room, and they would go to the usability lab, and they would walk right by us. So I went to the person who runs the tour for admissions, and I said, "How come you guys walk by us every time you do a tour?" And the VP for admissions said, "I hate to tell you this, but every school has a computer lab. Nobody's going to come to Bentley because of that room, so we don't show it." I said, "Okay, fine." So this is what it looked like inside. There's some networking equipment on the back wall, and as I said, a bunch of computers all around the edges. And I really wanted to figure out what I could do to this place, not only to change what it looked like, but also to change the culture of it. So for me, rethinking learning space design was about thinking, what can we do to change what it looks like, and also change what happens there and the perception of it. And so we wanted a place that was welcoming and multi-purpose and collaborative and visible and accessible. And so I did what everybody does. I looked at Wikipedia to see what Wikipedia says that future computer labs should look like. And they showed me that, which is sort of what we already had, right? Except for the red walls. And so I said, well, so what I learned from this picture was we needed bright colors on the walls, but we weren't going to put computers around the edges like Wikipedia said I should do. So we looked at what other classrooms look like for classroom design, and they basically all look like things around the edges or facing front in some way or another. And this isn't a classroom. This is a lab, a computer lab. So I didn't want a space that looked like this either. Also, in our lab, the room is long and narrow. It's about probably as wide as this and about as long as from here to like the first row of chairs. So it's like 22 by 30 or something like that. So it's a good sized room, but it's dark, and there wasn't room to put rows of things in there, even if I wanted to. So we tried to figure out, how can I evolve a computer lab into a collaborative learning space that I also wanted to be able to supplement with an online presence. I wanted to also find a way to bring in not only just the students who needed help, but the majors and the minors and the better students as well, because they weren't going to go there if all we did was give help to people who didn't know how to do their homework. And I wanted to figure out how we could impact students learning about technology through extracurricular activities, not just through come here because you want help with your homework. So that was the bigger picture set of goals that I set out. In addition to changing what it looked like, I was really trying to change the culture of a space. We looked into what the Joint Information Systems Commission says about designing learning spaces, and they say they need to be flexible and future-proof and bold and creative and supporting enterprising, and I had no idea what that meant, but we tried to come up with some of these, keep these words in mind as well in our design. How could we create a place that could be used for many different purposes and that would allow students to be enterprising as well as not look like your typical computer lab in university. Because when computer labs, the building that we were in was built in 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. And it struck me as I was thinking about this, when labs were built then, they were designed for students to connect to the internet. There were computers around the edges because you needed to connect to the internet. Well, we all connect to the internet now with these things and laptops and everything else we've got. So students don't need to connect to the internet anymore in a computer lab. What they need to do now is connect with each other, and that was the goal that I had in mind. So we looked at different designs for laying out the furniture, possibly keeping some of the chairs around the edges and putting some tables in the middle, and the table down the middle got axed because you can't get power and data to it, so that idea got axed. They didn't like this idea either because the tables in the corner were kind of weird. They were round and wouldn't fit people. But we did something bold. I wanted to argue for soft seating that we put in the back corner, comfortable chairs, so people might actually come and sit there and have conversations with each other. Well, this design got knocked down too, and so did this one. Somebody even suggested we put a plant in there, which wasn't going to live because there's no natural light. And the other thing we needed was there's no storage space in here, so I wanted to make sure we had at least a cabinet for storage. And this is not the picture you want to take. This is not the slide you want to take a picture of people. This is the bad one. And so we ended up looking at a design that looks something like this. Let me show you how we made it. If the video works, come on back. Where's the video? Where's the video? Here's the video. So the other thing I wanted to do was document everything. I learned that in order for me to be successful at this job, I needed to document everything because there's no sense in change if you don't know what it used to be like. So mounted a webcam on the wall before the construction began. This is what we did. We went down from 40 computers to about 12 in the corner because we have a networking class that needed to have 2 tables of computers that students could network together, and then there's the 6 tables around the edges. So I'll give you more pictures of what it looks like inside in a bit. So we have this new space. It needed a name. Clearly the old name wasn't getting people, so I didn't want to keep it there. So I looked at what schools call their computer labs, and it's usually one of these words on the left, followed by one of these words on the right. You're laughing. Who has a university computer lab where it's named one of those things, followed by one of those things? Raise your hands. So I'm not kidding about that. And I didn't want to do that either. So we had a space, we needed a name, and the name that I wanted to have for this place needed to promote business in some way because we're a business university. It needed to be playful in some way and encourage creativity and really be a culture change. And so we ended up calling the place CIS Sandbox. Sandbox in industry is a place where you go to, where you can test out software and test out environments without worrying about breaking anything. And so it had a playful name. It had the name of a space. No student had any clue why we called it that, despite the fact that when we opened up, people interviewed me and said, "Why'd you call it that?" And we put it in the paper. So we needed a name. So we had a name. We called it CIS Sandbox. Now we needed a logo, so we had a logo contest, and the student came up with that. We spent a lot less money on our logo than some universities do on theirs. We got somebody from the university donated an iPod or an iPod mini to the person who came up with this. So a freshman came up with this design, and it sort of became our brand. We've been putting that box up all over the place. And the other version with our website, which you can jot down, cis.bentley.edu/sandbox. We created social media accounts on Twitter, at CIS Sandbox, and Facebook, the same thing. And so we had, so now we have a name, we have a logo, we have a place, we have a nice looking room. What are we going to do there? This is what it looks like inside. When you first walk in, you see the TV mounted on the wall and the comfy chairs. We purposely went with chairs that have arms so students wouldn't sleep there overnight by pushing a few of them together. There are 6 tables around the edges, projector against the back wall where the equipment used to be, a smart board. Then we moved the networking equipment to the side wall so it's not the focus of the place, and all you see when you come in. We made sure that we bought gadgets like some iPads and tablets so that people who wanted to play with them could. We put collaborative stations along the walls. There's 5 of them. When we were doing the design, some people argued for another one of these tables right over here where the comfy chairs were, and I said absolutely not. I wanted to make sure that we had a place that had this living room kind of feel to it that didn't look like a computer lab, and so we did that. And so that's the difference between what we started with and what we ended with. This work took place over a summer with miraculous help from people who know how to paint really well. We wanted colors on the walls. Interestingly enough, the designer didn't ask me what colors do you want on the walls. We were talking and she said, what sort of an atmosphere do you want to promote here? And then when we talked about words like business casual and creativity and things like that, she came up with that palette of colors, and we liked them. And so the purpose was to try and become this collaborative learning community where people would come and hang out and learn with each other and interact with each other. Then we needed social media. Social media runs the place. In the past, it used to be that students who worked there, when I asked them what they did before I took on the job, they said, well, we tutor. I said, and how many hours a week do you work? 6. And how many hours a week do you tutor? 2. And what do you do the rest of the time? Homework. That was going to change. So we set up an ecosystem of social media tools. The CIS Sandbox is number 1, and we have a WordPress blog, which is number 2. And the whole idea of the WordPress blog is to get people into the room. We have Facebook, Twitter, and a LinkedIn page for people who work there. All those things, again, are designed to get people to connect with each other outside of the space and into the room. We've got Google Sites, and a Google site is an internal site that we use for passwords for accounts that we have on different social media sites and other services that we use. There's a Gmail that we use for the people who work there. A Google Calendar is where all the employees who work there have to keep their working hours, and then it gets fed into the website, so that's always up to date. We got Google Analytics looking at the traffic on the blog, so we can see when people go there and what they look at, and we see these curves where nobody's on the site on the weekends and a bunch of people are there during the week, and the schedule page is the most popular because they want to see who's working and when. And I require all the tutors who work there to fill out a log that shows who they tutored and what they asked them, so we can send those reports back to faculty so that there's some connection between the lab and the classroom. And so all of a sudden, there's more to do when you're not tutoring, because now there's not busy work, or there's some reporting work, some accountability, and there's also, we have students who now are in charge of all the social media that we do to advertise that we're here or advertise that we're running student-run sessions. And so this was where we sort of started. And then we also have a swipe machine so that kids can swipe in when they come, so we can get some data about who comes in and when.
Is that required?
What? We request but don't require students to swipe in. So students wanted an inviting space, and so we put a smartboard on the wall and tables and smartboard and a projector, and the printer is there, and there's some touch computers and stuff like that. Here's a picture of our blog, and one of the things that we made sure we did was we put a staff page so we can see who works there and who can tutor which courses. The website, one of the students redesigned to make it mobile friendly. It's clearly social. There's an Xbox in there that people can play with. The tutor page is there. We got analytics as to which courses get the most tutoring requests, so that helps in knowing who to hire. so I can make sure I have lots of students who know how to do IT 101 stuff and Java, and not so many students who need to know how to do database. One of the things that we learned, we kept a video up, a webcam up for one day. I don't have time to show you that video now, but it's on the blog, you can find it. We want to see who came in and who sat where. And one of the things that we noticed was the tables in the back where the computers are, nobody used, or fewer people used. So we put up a dual monitor set up on those tables so that people who came in with their laptops could at least use the monitors on those computers if they weren't using the workspace themselves. There's place for individual work. There's place for pizza. The smartboard people used to think at. There's a lot of peer tutoring that goes on. We started inviting alumni back to do career presentations about what they're doing in their jobs as a way to engage students who don't want tutoring help but who want to come there because everybody wants a job. And so this way they get to see their friends who graduated, and they get to see the kinds of things that they're doing with their degrees. And we hold these events in the lab, so there's a direct link between where students are learning and where they're going to get jobs. We brought in a robotics company to do a demo. We have a social media presence. We got students who work there to create videos. We do a lot of Excel tutoring. So for some of the more popular topics, we got the students to create instructional videos that are up on the website, so students can watch those. It extends the reach of the tutors. Some students watch them, and then when they first went up, they would actually come in and say, "I saw you on the video. Will you help me?" So it helped create this social community as opposed to using other videos that were online on other places. And there's a lot of videos about creating charts in Excel, but none that are made by our tutors. One piece of compromise: faculty want individual work. Here's a note that said, "Dear Mark, I had two students with identical homeworks. Their roommates sent them with the lab all the time." And so there's this tension between collaboration and students want to do and faculty wanting to do, students to do their own work. And so we had to make a policy that says you can't put code up on the big monitors so everybody can see it. Our students rewrote the swipe system because they didn't like the one that we started with, so they improved it. The first semester we were open, we had 2,800 visits. By the second semester we were open, it was up to 4,000 visits, which is about 1,000 unique people. And that's up from 600 the previous year before the renovations took place. We were closed during the week of spring break, that's why there's a gap there. Students came up with ideas for things that they wanted to do and tried to simulate it, because we tried to simulate this startup mentality where their ideas would come into play. We sent out a survey at the end of one of the semesters that we were open asking, "Tell us what you think about the place." And these are the common adjectives and nouns and words that people said about us, that they liked the atmosphere and that we were helpful. At the end of one semester, Matt, who's back there, set up tutoring sessions for at the end of the semester to review for all the freshmen who take our introductory IT course, to review those courses. And we had 50 students in at back-to-back sessions the night before final studying. And so it became a student-driven place where their ideas really took over the way the place was working. And you can see the same material that was projected on the screens all over the room, and students came in and did their work. Last summer we ran a summer camp program for a day. The Multicultural Center had a group of high school kids in for a week, and we did 2 days worth of technology programming with them that we called Camp Sandbox, and they came in and played video games and learned a little bit about touch input and social media and things like that. And then I thought my work was, and then we finally made the tour. So we made the tour, that was all good. And I thought, now we got one more to go. I was teaching in a room that looked like, we've heard about the flipped classroom. My slide's out of order. I wanted to take this lab setup and bring it to a classroom. And these kinds of classrooms are known as studio classrooms. The research is it's this kind of a space where it's a prototype of an experimental learning space. And Bentley actually built one of these a few years ago for a graduate program. They took the idea that we had in our lab and put a smartboard in and put a lectern in and made it as an experimental classroom that a graduate program was working in, but it wasn't available to for everyone to teach in. And so I said to the school, please, now that we built a computer lab that didn't look like a computer lab, can we build a classroom that doesn't look like a classroom? And they said, what do you mean? So we took this space and, let's see. I learned keep the webcam up in the corner of the room. And so last summer we did this. This room has windows, so we could sort of tell when it was. We cut out all the days and nights when the paint was drying. But again, we put a smartboard on the back and a screen in the front, and we've got colors that look like they're really bright. And did the same sort of setup. The only difference between this and the other room is the tables in this room. The U-shaped end caps are come off, so you can take a table from one end and group them together if you want to have small group learning activities as well. This room is 35 by about 30 feet, and we called it the CIS studio. And we got some bright colors in there. I love teaching in there because there's openness on the sides. It's easy to get between places. You can see there's a lectern over here. Behind me is the smartboard. So if I'm talking, I can see what's in the back and in the front. I'll often go in there with my iPad and Doceri so I can stand in the middle of the room and not be tethered to the laptop in the back. We have software that projects the screens all over the place, the instructor screen or any of the student screens to the different monitors. So being able to see is easy. Here's some students who are in there, and so this was our response to trying to build a classroom for flipping the classroom. 36, 32 before, 36 now. So we upped that. I love this. We were doing a unit on Google Glass, and so I took a selfie. Took a selfie with Google Glass. I'll come to your questions in a sec. And so we asked students what they thought about this new space. 5 different classes met in there during the first semester it was open. It was just open last year, and we sampled students from each class and asked them for their thoughts about the space. They liked the colors. And they said they inspired their creativity. The smartboard was easy to see. The screen was easy to see. The classroom replicates a professional work environment they thought that they might see for collaboration. It's conducive to discussion. It promotes creativity. Meeting this space helped them solve problems because they were able to interact with each other and improve their attitude about the course material. I'm not sure why they said that, but that was very popular. We said, give us 5 words that describe this room. And those are the popular words that they came up with. And they said the classroom allowed for engagement and interactivity, made it easier to stay focused. It was hands-on. You never had to turn around. It was more intimate. It was easy to have discussions in. And so our conclusions and things and our lessons learned were figure out what you want to do there, whether it's a classroom or a lab. Figure out what you want to do there. Design is iterative. We went through lots of designs before we had settled on what we wanted to do. We actually put masking tape on the floor to outline where the tables were going to go and put chairs around to make sure that we weren't going to be bumping into each other when we sat down. Figure out where power and data is going to come from. We didn't want things coming from the floor or coming up from the ceiling, and we didn't want to wire the floor. So we were sort of left to putting things coming off the sides of the walls because of that. We wanted to make sure students could see. We wanted to make sure that the space was casual and set the environment, reflected the environment we were trying to create. If we were trying to create a space to be used by a graduate program that for MBA students, we probably wouldn't put purple on the walls. Maybe we would have. The big thing was we wanted space for students to spread out with their devices. We figured out 3 feet of space per student and at least 3 devices per student for wireless. Questions, comments, thoughts?
So when you converted the classroom, it looked like there was already hardware in the room. Did you transition to require students to bring laptops?
So Bentley has had a laptop policy for a long time. And so this was a response to being able to have a classroom that allowed students to use their own laptops. That happened to be a PC classroom, and we just got rid of all the PCs in it.
You had a lab that was challenged enough to have people not want to show the students to it. How did you create the buy-in to get the capital to rebuild the entire lab?
Nobody else was going to do the job. how did I get the money to do this? Well, two things. One is Bentley has an academic technology center which which manages a number of the high-tech labs and classrooms on campus. And I went to the person who runs the place and asked, why is it that our lab hadn't been updated for 12 years, basically? And the response was, no one ever asked. And so I said, I'm asking. And that sort of started the conversation about, well, what do you want to do? And I wrote a proposal about what I wanted to try and do. I wrote a proposal about this vision that I had that was making it just more than, if all I would have said was, I just want to put paint on the walls, repaint the place and put in some tables, that would have given me a nice looking room that nobody was going to go to. For me, I think it was the combination of saying I want to create a space that goes beyond what a traditional computer lab does, to think about, yeah, we still have to do tutoring, but what else can we do to change the culture of the place? And I think it was the combination of those things that said, you know what, we have a chance to do this again, and it wasn't. I mean, it was expensive, but it wasn't that expensive. It was probably the computers in the room were on a 3-year cycle, and so they were to be due to be replaced next year anyway. So when we went down from 40 computers to about 14, we saved money on 30 computers that we could use to buy a smart. So we saved some money in that way, and they ended up putting a floor in that they didn't expect to put in because the old floor looked crappy when they painted. But it was the furniture was expensive. That's a one-time thing. There was a little bit of electrical work to do because the lighting wasn't so good in there. I think it was probably about $50,000 to $60,000 that we spent to renovate the first lab, and I don't know what the cost was to do the classroom. Are we using we are using virtual desktops not for this. On some of the computers in the lab, there are virtual desktops that give access to software that students don't have on their machines. But not always.
You mentioned they use software for collaboration.
Software for collaboration for whom?
Well, in the lab, you said that you have software that allows them to.
Oh, it's Land School. Land School. There may be better solutions. That's just what they knew how to do, so that's what we use. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'll stick around afterward. So some faculty have actually held office hours in the Sandbox, which I thought was a really cool thing. They moved their office hours down there. A couple of people do that once or twice a week. And the classroom is open. We control who teaches in there, and so far only a few people have found it. So we're kind of lucky in that way. But there were about 4 classes that met in there the first semester it was open. About 6 met in there last semester, and I think 7 or 8 are meeting in there this fall. If the Academic Technology Center will train them to do, as they train me, to use the software that pushes the smartboard isn't the problem. It's the stuff that pushes the images all around the room that's tricky until you've gotten the hang of it. Thank you, and I'll be happy to stick around, but I need to let someone else set up.